Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this very special treat. We're going to be talking about messaging, effective messaging about shared parenting. And this is messaging when you're talking to people, when you're talking to the media, when you're on social media, when you are talking with friends and family. And I want to go over some mistakes that people often make when talking about shared parenting. But first, who I am and why we're here. So my name is Ginger Gentile. Some of you know me as the director of the documentary Racing Family, and a lot more of you know me as the new executive director of the National Parents Organization. National Parents Organization is one of the leading organizations in the United States that promotes shared family and legislation and family court reform. And I invite all of you to visit our website, which is sharedparenting.org. I'm typing it in right now to see how your state did on the National Shared Parenting Report Card that came out in 2019, sorry. The average grade was a C minus. That's better than a D plus that I got in the 2014 report card. 2 states got an F, and only 2 states got an A. And one of the states that got an A is Kentucky, and that's because thanks to the efforts of the National Parents Organization chapter in Kentucky, they have passed the first true default shared parenting legislation in the United States. The other state that got an A is Arizona. It also has a great law that's more about maximizing parenting time with both kids. So, and last night for the NPO affiliates, we had an exclusive call with Matt Hale, who talked about the strategy he used in Kentucky. He taught me a lot of great stuff that I'm going to share with you in an abbreviated format today. And you're thinking like, well, I want access to that information. I want to learn from the best, and I want a ton of resources, written resources from brochures, posters, buttons to use to promote shared parenting. Join your local NPO affiliate in your state. We have 25 affiliates from California to New York, from Florida to Washington, and in between we have Texas, we have Utah, we have North Carolina, we have Rhode Island, and more than I can count because I can't keep track anymore because we have so many. Or you can form your own affiliate. And we only give this detailed training to our affiliates, not because we make money off of this. We don't charge dues to our members, though we encourage fundraising, of course, when they can. But because we hold our affiliates to the highest possible standard, and we make sure they sign a code of conduct, that they have to always comport themselves online and offline with decorum. And National Parents Organization, there's a lot of organizations out there doing great work, but has taken the path of producing academic research and having a very professional appearance. That means we can go to places like a conference of child support enforcement agencies and be invited to talk. We can talk to judges, and we're listened to because of our messaging and our research and our trajectory. So I invite you to look at your grade on the report card, and if you're interested in learning more, join a chapter. Christopher Lee Ringbolt, I can't wait to see Oklahoma's grade next year. We're working hard here. Yes, we hope that if the average grade was a C minus this year, we're hoping that the grades go up to at least a B next year or in the next few years. And to be clear, the grades are based on the statutes, so judges then may rule differently. And also that might mean they might be better rulings than what the report card grade reflects. But often people complain that they think their report card grades are too high, not too low. So let's just do a little housekeeping. And the first thing I always ask people to do is to share this video. So to do that, I'm going to share the link, and you do that by copying this. Sorry, this is taking a little long. So who here can share this video on their page right now? I'm gonna give you the link right now to make it easier. If you can share this on your page, please give me a hell yeah. Of course. So I'm going to post this right now so everyone can have it. So here's the link. So Kathy Wood, Christopher Lee, Dawn, can you share this on a page? David Miller, can you share this? I'm going to share this right now on my own homepage, Ginger Gentile on Facebook. So I'm going to say live now, and just click the link and post it. Great. And I'm going to put it on the Erasing Family one as well. So really, you know, the more we can share this, so we can we get some shares? Who can share it? So David Miller just shared, Don shared, John Richards said, of course, copied links. David Miller shared to personal page as well as NPO New Jersey page. David, maybe you could also share it to FanPack, some other organizations, parental alienation groups you might be in, and that really helps us get the message out. So this is interactive, so I want you to ask me some questions, but I want to talk about just some things that I see over and over again with the shared parenting or family court reform movement and also the parental alienation movement in a while. First of all, talking, it can be in two strings. One is talking like everybody knows about your issue and knows all the terminology, or assuming that you. So let's break that down. What does that mean? Using overly complicated terminology. So people often will say words that I don't know, but saying gals for guardian ad litems, and nobody knows what a gal is or a guardian ad litem, so you have to explain that. But people also don't even know what shared parenting is. So we have to, so if you say I support shared parenting, you should follow it up with, which means parents getting near equal time with their children after divorce or separation, or in the case of never married parents. And that's very clear, and I think we're often afraid to use the terms divorce and separation, but people get it right away. And then you can say this is different from joint legal custody, which is joint decision making, which, for example, is very common in California, but California got a D on its report card because they actually don't promote shared physical custody. Also, you know, to say that it's not exactly 50-50, the definition of shared parenting is that one parent has at least 35% of the time. And I think that's clear because people often think that it's this very rigid thing. But the idea behind shared parenting is to reduce conflict. So kids and families are healthier, so they're not spending thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a family court battle. They're not getting traumatized. The kid doesn't have to be forced to choose, or they don't have access to justice because they don't have money. So what's very important is to say, because a lot of the, you know, one argument right away is, well, if the parents decide themselves, yeah, but parents often feel that one parent has an advantage, or, you know, you're asking the court to decide, and why do courts have to decide anything in the case of fit and loving parents? So always start off with the definition, okay? Very important. Don't assume the other side knows what you're talking about, and stay away from technical language. Guardian ad litems, ROCs, ECRs, parallel parenting. People don't know what that is. Now, how do you know if your message is working? And the answer is so simple, and it's so easy, and it's a good way to practice and get over your embarrassment, is to find somebody who does not know about this issue. I love people who, you know, maybe a server at a restaurant if it's slow, someone on a bus, someone, you know, in a mall, someone next to you on a plane, and just practice with them and see how they react. Do they start asking questions? Are they engaged? Do they want to run away? Are the questions about the issue? Or are they like, what are you talking about? And really test it. And I think that's one reason why the Erasing Family film was very effective, is that we not only tested the film itself, but we also tested our messaging and would ask people, what do you think about this post? What do you think about the language we're using? And, you know, right away, when I started asking young people, they said, you know, I'd show them posts from other pages. They say, oh, well, we hate pictures of babies crying. That turns us off. We want happy messaging. And that goes to my next lesson, which is people really respond to positive messaging about how shared parenting will reduce the trauma in children. And we have studies and proof of that. How people want this. The latest poll that the National Parents Organization did in Virginia showed that 93% of people support shared parenting. goes across gender, racial, ethnic, political party affiliations, religious affiliation. Everybody loves shared parenting, okay? So this is an issue that everybody's on board with, and we need to start acting like it. And by being positive, it just doesn't mean positive messaging, but also when you are talking about this, you are an ambassador for the cause. And I have seen a lot of groups, and this isn't like to shout out a group or anything, but I've been to meetings where I've walked in and felt intimidated because there's a bunch of tough looking angry dudes, and I know they're teddy bears at heart, but it's intimidating to walk into a room of 20 guys who are dressed like bikers or in ill-fitting suits and everyone's sweating and nervous. You got to smile. You always have to give people, when people meet you, if you're a parent going through this, you have to give them no ammunition to think, okay, there's a reason why you're not seeing your kids. If you get angry, they'll go, oh, you're angry. That's why the judge won't let you see your kids. Or that's why your ex doesn't want you to see your kids. If you act crazy, oh, you're crazy. Now, we all know how trauma works and that these are often trauma responses, that people, when they can't see their children, you know, there's an old stereotype, women get sad, men get mad, people begin to act crazy and erratic. So this isn't to blame people, but if you are acting as an advocate, you really have to have your shit in order. You really have to be ready to project a positive face. What can help is by not leading with your story. People ask why you're involved. You can just say, this is an issue dear to my heart because it's affected my family. And if they push you, don't lie, but most people don't push and they don't want to hear your story. That's my other big tip. People don't want to hear your story. People don't want to get involved in fighting. And think about it. Have you ever been at a dinner party or at a restaurant with a friend that's a couple and they start fighting? What's the first thing you want to do? Oh, we have a little cat. So now we'll get 1 billion internet views because the internet loves cats and there's no way to outdo a cat video. So I'm hoping for there to be a kitten fail. The poster's going to go over the cat and then this video will go viral and we'll spread the word about shared parenting. But basically, like, don't lead with your story. Always bring it back to how there's 22 million parents in the US who report being alienated from their children, how people know this is the best solution, how the studies back this up, and there's a lot of information on our website, how this reduces family conflict. We now know from Kentucky this reduces domestic violence because there's less conflict involved, all these great things. But if you yourself, when you're talking about it, come off as angry, if you are bad-mouthing other people in the movement, this makes you look bad. It makes people begin to doubt, because what people have to say if they know you're a parent who can't see their kid is say, that is the worst tragedy in the world that you, being a great person, can't see your kid. The moment they say there must be a reason that you're not telling me, you have lost the argument. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to bring up some more stuff on this topic. I'm trying to find a great quote on this. In a book, but I might not be able to because I didn't bookmark this beforehand. But so I'll get into, like, something that is really, really, key on this, which is by being polite and by being friendly, we are not saying not to be critical and pretend like everything's hunky-dory and rosy. And we actually had an issue this week where an affiliate posted something, and it was very critical of the family courts and how corrupt they were, and that was fine. But then at the end it said, and so we want to give the middle finger to the family courts. That's tone and that's language, but that is so important, these choices. So I always say family courts are trauma factories that make no sense, that rob people of years with their kids, make things worse, and steal tons of money. I don't mince words, but I never say family courts are evil, lawyers are evil, they're sons of bitches, we need to put a bomb in family court. I never say that. And this is really an important distinction. You can be very critical, but always with love and kindness and happiness and energy. And I can't find the quote in this book, which is it's a little hard to read. Okay, Eckhart Tolle's The New Earth, but basically says a lot of people, they go to a social movement because they're angry, but they end up bringing those conflicts they have into the social movement, repeating them, and this is not a real way to create change. So you really have to, if you're going to be an advocate, you really have to work on yourself first. And we all have issues and trauma, and we're here probably because we're affected by this. But you can't speak publicly at the very least. You can't speak to legislators. You can't speak to the press if you are angry, if you are sad, if you're despondent, if you're desperate. Because any advocacy has to be a gift to future generations that this won't happen again, right? So if you are doing this to get back at somebody, to prove yourself right, you are repeating the conflict that might have happened in the dissolution of your marriage or partnership. And I always say, if we are promoting shared parenting, because everyone says, oh, shared parenting is great if people get along, but what if the parents don't get along? We need to get along with everybody in our movement. And one rule we have with NPO is that we have this for all our members, if there's a problem with any other advocate within the NPO or outside of the National Parents Organization, you call the person up or you write them an email, but you don't post stuff under their posts. You don't make a video about them because it makes us look really, really bad. People outside the movement don't know who any of us are, by the way. So, check your ego. Besides, people say, oh, well, this person. I'm like, ask someone on the street if they know who that person is. No, they have no idea who these people are. So the sectarianism doesn't help anything. And I think that's just so key, because we have to show that we can get along with people who have different beliefs than us. Then the other thing I want to talk about before I start taking questions is stop giving the opposition oxygen. So we have an issue that 93% of the population agrees with. I'm going to guess the only thing that polls that high in the United States right now is, are you in favor of not killing puppies? Do you like ice cream? And probably ice cream, I'm going to guess, actually would poll less, because there's some people who are lactose intolerant, there are people who are vegan, there are people who just don't like ice cream. So this is like an issue that polls so well. And then people are still leading with what the opposition says, or what the opposition was saying 10 or 20 years ago. Walk into the fact that we are the majority. Matt Hale said this great last night, who passed the Kentucky legislation. We are on the right side of history and we're going to win. It's just a matter of getting our messaging right, our ducks in a row, and really working effectively and working on our messaging. He said so clearly in the beginning, when he came off with a father-based message that dads are angry that they can't see their kids, they didn't go anywhere. But when they came up with an inclusive message and had an inclusive group that reflected the diversity of their state and always smiling, it passed with only 2 people against the shared parenting law in Kentucky. That's amazing. And there's no reason why this can't happen everywhere. But people still say, well, what do I say to the people who are going to say this? I say, you say nothing. Don't bring up the past opposition. And what personally, if people say, well, why doesn't this pass? You can say, well, it's not a priority, so we have to educate about how many people are affected by this. We all know that legislatures, are not very effective right now. But also you can say that there's money in divorce, and that unfortunately some, not all, but some bar associations and lawyers lobby against this, because less billable hours means less money for them, and less conflict means less billable hours for lawyers. But the one that really gets me is when people say, well, the National Organization for Women doesn't support shared parenting. Please stop right now. I never want to hear that again, for a few reasons. One, if you haven't noticed, National Organization for Women actually no longer has this as one of their main platform points. It's a minor point you have to search for on their website. Number 2, the National Organization for Women is a wonderful organization with a wonderful history, but it's not a leader in the feminist or women's rights movement right now. Most young feminists don't read Ms. Magazine. They're not members of the National Organization for Women. So you're giving oxygen to an organization that for most women and men who consider themselves feminists, they would consider it, an organization whose days, whose big days of being part of, the influencer on this issue are behind them. And then also, with my film Erasing Family, everybody who worked on it would consider themselves a feminist. And they see no conflict with this issue because, as they would say, they have dads, they grew up without their dads, and that's the personal issue what gets them. They understand that family court's messed up. They understand that there can be a gender bias. So if you say, well, the feminists are now or against shared parenting, you could just throw feminists into confusion. Then they start to ask why. Emma Johnson, who considers herself a feminist and writes a lot about this, is a huge shared parenting and child support reform advocate. So there's no reason to bring this up. Or people always say, oh, some domestic violence groups, don't bring it up. Because here's another great thing that can happen with people who oppose this, who's the very, very small minority, is in some states what they've told me is, it's not that they now support shared parenting, they've stopped saying anything about it. Let them stop saying stuff about it because they know they're losing. And this argument, because shared parenting reduces domestic violence, shared parenting increases gender equality, shared parenting is best for moms, dads, and for kids. So let's lead with that and not the few arguments that we have. So now I'm going to take some questions. So Christopher Lee Rainbolt says, a Bill of Rights for parent equality is what's needed. Oklahoma has a Bill of Parental Rights in our statutes. Title 25 SS 2001, it's just not enforced. So that's a great issue. So the law is not a solution. There's no one magical solution, okay? You need enforcement of the laws. You need buy-in from the judiciary. You need buy-in from the police. You need buy-in from the social workers and the psychologists. So that's why education is so important. I even say more important because you could have horrible laws, but if judges by de facto are issuing shared parenting, and I've heard of places where this happens, you kind of don't need a change in law. But if you have a great law that the judges don't order and a system that's still set up to force parents to fight, it doesn't matter. And there's a lot of procedural reform we can do. And education we can do. And also the more we educate, it means when we do bring up these laws, there will be less resistance. So I often give the example in Argentina, interfering with custody order is 3 years in jail. You know how many people are sitting in jail right now for interfering with custody orders in Argentina? 0. And it's not because there's no interference of custody orders. It's because no judge wants to put a parent in jail for interfering with custody, even if they're wrong, because they think that'd be worse for the kid. So yeah, great law with 0 enforcement, and it actually works against parents because the parent who's withholding visitation or custody then goes to court, see that nothing happens, and they feel emboldened and empowered. Christopher Lee Rainbolt, I love using ACEs to educate legislators. Okay, this is a great concept. So ACEs is the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And you can Google it, and there's a whole community around ACEs. But basically what ACEs study says, and what I love about it is that this is not hippy-dippy woo-woo stuff about mind-body connection. This was a longitudinal study by the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, with over 100,000 participants. And what they found is regardless of income level, the more trauma you experience as a child, adverse childhood experiences, and one is separation from family members, witnessing domestic violence, having a parent incarcerated, emotional neglect, which basically sounds like parental alienation or a horrible custody battle, as well as actual seeing violence, your parents doing drugs. You get a score, and if you have, and most of the population has at least one adverse childhood experience. Some have 2 or 3. Oklahoma, I know the average is like 4 or something, which is super high, and I just know that because Linda Steele, a great advocate out there, told me that. The more likely you are not just to have an emotional problem growing up, which seems kind of obvious, right? You're much more likely to have diabetes, heart disease, a stroke, cancer, because toxic stress when you're a child literally destroys your cells. It destroys your body because your body releases cortisol, which when you are incredibly stressed, cortisol is great. Some of you might have gotten a cortisol shot if you had an injury. And for short-term, cortisol is a miracle drug, but it stays in your body too long, it will literally eat your brain and your body cells. The good news is that ACEs, having a high ACE score, is not a sentence. The effects can be reversed through teaching coping mechanisms, therapy, and removing the stressor. So that means reuniting kids with their parents, giving them, removing violence from their homes and their neighborhoods. So don't think because you have an ACE score of a 6 you're doomed to get cancer. It doesn't work like that, but it does mean you have a higher propensity. So what is the cheapest way to reduce ACEs in our population? By installing shared parenting, because it's something that doesn't cost anything. It will save people money, but it will also reduce stress. Because divorce, if your parents are divorced or separated, that is an ACE score. But in my mind, there's a big difference between an amicable divorce where parents are able to co-parent and a messy, horrible divorce or parental alienation type situation. Okay, looking for some more questions. Mark Haggis, a few years ago, I was talking to a biker group called Bikers Against Child Abuse. I was mentioning parental alienation. They would not even recognize it. Try to explain, but they weren't having it. Yeah, because you see, you're getting people. The problem with leading with parental alienation is that people don't want to get involved in a parent withholding custody or a child saying they don't want to go with the parent because you have no idea to know what's going on in that situation from the outside. Having a bunch of bikers show up to enforce a custody order, I could see why that could go very bad. What you need is a therapeutic approach, and what we need is a system that treats parental alienation as a public health crisis. And by having a better system in place, we will reduce the number of cases over the years. And I think people often start off with the most extreme cases. And there's 22 million alienated parents in the US right now. Our goal should be within 10 years to have that number go down to 15 million. It's never going to be zero. I hate to break it to people, but it doesn't have to be 22 million. The same with smoking, the same with domestic violence, the same with bullying. Bullying went down by 10 million per year in the US. So there's still 15 million children, I think, or 12 million being bullied each year, but it was much higher 10 years ago. So that's good. It doesn't mean that it's great that 15 million kids in the US are being bullied each year, but it's better than 25. Linda Steele presents solutions with the issues. We need to begin being constructive, not always emotional destructive. That's great. Linda Steele is doing some great work in Oklahoma, helping non-custodial fathers get resources they need. Follow what she's doing. She's going to be writing a blog for NPO. Really amazing stuff. And whatever you see Linda do, this is a great example. It's always with love and a smile about helping people. It's not about getting back. It's about helping. Cal Alexander, to be active, you must be proactive. Christopher Lee Rainbow, to my friends, please copy the link and share. I'm going to put it right here, the link again. Please share it on your page. Thank you. Cal Alexander, how do we become part of NPO? Oh, thanks for asking, Cal. I thought you would never ask. You can go to our website, which is nationalparentsorganization.org, or if that's too long to remember, you can also go to sharedparenting.org. We're transitioning. We're also doing a completely new website, which I'm very excited about, which will have so much better information and resources. I have to admit, our website right now, it's like too much information. And go to start an affiliate. Cal, what state are you in? Because your state might already have an affiliate, so you can type that in there. Kevin Hayden, the boy crisis encourages equal shared parenting, all divorces including, I agree. Warren Farrell is also working with the National Parents Organization. He'll be writing some blog posts for us. He also endorsed the Erasing Family film, and I was very fortunate to have him speak at 2 showings of Erasing Family. It's an honor to work with somebody like Warren Farrell. But let's talk about Warren Farrell. So if you haven't read The Boy Crisis, let me get out my copy. So I don't buy books often, but I did buy this one. And Warren Farrell, and this I think is very interesting. So Warren Farrell, he starts off, he was one of the founding members of the National Organization of Women. He is from Marin County, north of San Francisco, and I'm sure he'd agree with this. He's very liberal. He is, he comes from the hippie counterculture movement, and he's one of the first people to start talking about the myth of male power. And also, if you've ever been to a men's support group or awareness circle, Warren Farrell invented that, and I apologize to Warren Farrell if somebody else was also involved whose name I forget. Um, but Warren Farrell is able to speak effectively on the boy crisis by saying when one gender wins, both genders lose, by having an inclusive message that reaches equally to people on the conservative side of the spectrum. And when I was with him in San Francisco, I know that people in the crowd, it was as liberal as can come, and they were loving everything he was saying. And that's because he always focuses on solutions, not blame. And this is so key. You can talk about anything if you are smiling and talking about solutions. So I suggest you read this, even if you're like, I don't care about boys, which I mean, that's crazy. I hope you do. But the tone in this book, it's so useful. It's so practical. And he talks about divorce and being healthy. And he talks about, because we often hear toxic masculinity, which, as he points out, is a way to blame men for being men. But he does say, wait a minute, we tell our boys to be soldiers and or to be fathers, but just make money. What about warrior fathers, warrior nurses, warrior elementary school teachers? So to be caring as a warrior and to bring that masculine spirit and energy that society needs, but to heal, not to kill. And to push our boys into healing, to being fathers, to have men consider being full-time dads and giving the support they need to do that. And, I would also, say, and I'm getting a little off topic here, we also as a society have to start talking about toxic femininity and what that does to women, to always tell them that they're helpless, that they're always victims, that all the men are out to get them, and really about healing. So he is someone who can be super critical of what's going on, but with such warmth and compassion. It's really worth a read, again, if for nothing else, to learn how to message. He did a TED Talk that got over 1 million views about the boy crisis, and that's because he's not a men's rights advocate. He is a human rights advocate who's talking about the boy crisis, and that's very important. It's not about winning or losing, and that's one thing that also I see about messaging. You can't be, and I see this on Facebook. People assume because their ex was crazy that all women or all men are crazy. Talking about fatherhood, NPO sponsoring an event in Florida. I forgot to mention this. I'll be speaking there. Actor Omar Epps, NFL star Julio Jones. I'm not an NFL fan, but I've heard he's big. Omar Epps wrote a book about growing up in a fatherless household. Advocate Mark Merrill will also be there. February 1st in Miami. Please share. It's their banner image on NPO. But what's so important about these events is I advertise that, and some woman wrote, "Oh, you're just promoting fathers getting custody." It's like, no, the event is about active fatherhood, number one. But just because your ex is an asshole doesn't mean everybody in the other gender is an asshole or a bitch out to get everybody else. Like, you can't equate the worst person you've ever met and say everybody is like that, because that is called prejudice. And I've seen a lot of groups, who talk about shared parenting, and then they start saying all women are gold diggers. I saw a lot of advocates, and this broke my heart. This is a silly example, but Keanu Reeves, very famous actor, started dating a woman 10 years younger than him, who I personally think is very beautiful. She happens not to dye her gray hair. And some of these shared parenting advocates really dug in on, she's a gold digger, why is he with such an old, ugly hag? And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Keanu Reeves, who's a wonderful guy, finds love, and he hasn't been in a couple, and you're criticizing him, one, because she's a gold digger, but then also that he should be with a prettier, hotter chick? Like, how does that make us look? It makes us look really bad. Wow, a lot of comments. Whoa, okay. Linda Steele, how do you feel about establishing digital accountability at the state level? I think this is a great idea, and I think we should just start by asking the legislator to say family courts have to provide information on their outcomes. And by that I mean, like, if you go to a family court and you say 5 years later, are the families who went through family court better or worse off? Even by how they self-rank, like, does the mom, the dad, the kids, are they like, we're better or worse off than after having been through family court? No idea. asking them to study and send out surveys even, or doing follow-ups, maybe on a certain percentage, I think would be amazing. Because the people say shared parenting doesn't work and the system is great the way it is. Do they have any data to back this up? No, they do not. Gil Mejias, where can I find Arizona case law that supports shared parenting after 3 years of successful alienation by one parent? So Gil Mejias, you can find that out in the Arizona statute and also by going to nationalparentsorganization.org and clicking on our report card, because it does state all the statutes there that gave Arizona an A minus. Just because the law is good doesn't mean that it will solve your case. River flows. Is this the wrong video conference to learn about beginning steps in contacting legislators? This is about messaging in general. So you have to message, whether you're talking to politicians, whether you're talking to the media, whether you're talking to your neighbor. Alexander, one thing I've experienced in several states that makes shared parenting not work well is allowing judges to give doubt at the beginning to one parent's ability to have parental rights. Instead, laws have to be established that both parents. So basically, what the shared parenting laws in Kentucky and the states they're working to is say there's a rebuttable presumption, which means parents are presumed to be capable unless there's clear evidence, and that varies from state to state. So in some states it can be a mere accusation, but ideally it would be an actual conviction or pattern of domestic violence or abuse, or perhaps a psych eval that really shows some major problems, but not a parent saying, if you watched Marriage Story, well, she does drink a glass of red wine with dinner. Like, no, that's not an alcoholic. That's someone who drinks maybe a glass too many. Marvy Mavs shared to Parental Alienation Support Group, Cal Alexander, North Carolina. So Cal, there's a chapter, an NPO chapter in North Carolina. You should join that chapter. You can go to our website and look him up. Dustin Long is the leader. Ashley Nicole Russell, who is an amazing collaborative lawyer, is also helping out to write shared parenting legislation. So get involved with your chapter in North Carolina. So Linda Steele, how do we get Oklahoma and how do we get NPO to Oklahoma? We need to form a chapter in Oklahoma. We need someone to be a chair. And we do have we have states now, Wisconsin and New Jersey, people who have active organizations brought NPO to their state, and their organization is doing one thing and NPO another. So for example, in Wisconsin, they're a group kind of similar to yours, Linda, that provides support for parents who are going through divorce and separation. So actual like support groups, legal aid and stuff. And they said, well, we want to bring an NPO because we want to create legislative change and advocacy. So those are two different things, but they're still running both groups. And in New Jersey, FanPAC, which has been very successful, and it's actually a PAC, a political action committee. But they're like, well, we want to bring an NPO to have more national resources, and we'll do our lobbying efforts through FanPAC, but NPO will be for research, advocacy, and education, because that's what it's best at. Let's see. Don Andrea McCarthy says a great way to get people involved with your state legislatures is to have your NPO state affiliates combine the NPO sponsorship with the screening of the Erasing Family documentary. And that's true. NPO is sponsoring screenings of my film, or our film, Erasing Family. And the film is just a great tool. And in New Jersey, they showed it to a packed room of 130 people, and there was 2 state reps there. And one of the state reps, I'll never forget this, she says, I didn't know this was a problem. I just realized I'm an erased aunt, and then told the entire room how to pass a shared parenting bill in New Jersey, how they had to present it, and how they had to talk to people. And it's going to open up people's hearts, because we all have a family member affected by this. So let's see. So River Flows, thanks. What is the name and date of the conference with Julio Jones? So it's February 1st in Miami, and it's called Fatherless to Fatherhood. And it is, hold on, I will, let's see if I can put this up here. Hold on, let me find this. Let me see if this works. So I'll put this here. Hi, Avi. Avi Lieberman just joined, who's a fellow filmmaker in Hollywood. Let's see who else. Tom Settle, how about in Minnesota? We would love an NPO chapter in Minnesota. So also you can set one up. Hi, Lisa Parenteau. Wow, so many comments. There's 42 comments. So I might not get to everyone. John Richards, which state will pass equal shared parenting next? Which state is next? Kentucky. I don't know. And I don't want to say who. I think North Carolina and Virginia are in strong positions. I also think Utah could be in a very strong position because they've been at this for a while. I think Florida also has a shot in the near future, but prove me wrong, other states. So if you're like, Ginger didn't see my state's name, I don't know. I'll eat a ghost pepper online or something crazy, and you can prove me wrong, and I'll hold up a sign like I was wrong. Missouri passed it next. Oh, that's right. Missouri is also in a really good position. We have Linda Retzel of NPO in Missouri, so that might also pass. But like, you never know, because also a state could be doing really great work and then it doesn't get on the legislative calendar for some stupid reason and it doesn't get passed even though everybody supports it. And then maybe it gets slipped into some other legislation and passes really easily in another state. Linda Steele, according to Oklahoma's data, 48% of Oklahoma children are raised with one or both parents absent. Oh my God. Horrible. Thomas Settle, there's a documentary called Erased Family. No, it's called Erasing Family, and I directed it. I'm going to put the website in right now. We also have a huge Facebook presence. And it's doing community screenings and it'll be on a streaming platform later this year. Warren Farrell has endorsed Erasing Family. It's also going to be part of the panel in Miami. Let's see who else. Thomas Settle, are there filmmakers you can put me in touch with on this feed? I mean, if you're willing to pay them, I know a lot of wonderful filmmakers, not Minnesota based, who would be happy to be hired by you. As a filmmaker, this is a little off topic. A lot of people come to us with ideas, and filmmakers, if they're independent, are always like, "Where's the funding?" Because people are like, "Would you do another documentary?" I'm like, "Are you willing to fund it?" No. I'm like, "I can't do another documentary." Then that's the way the cookie crumbles, people. But filmmakers, you can get very good filmmakers if you pay for them to make an ad for you or something like that. John Richards, Oklahoma just passed Louisiana as #1 incarcerating state. Oklahoma needs shared parenting. Hell yeah, everyone does. But like, what Linda has been telling me about Oklahoma is like crazy. Jill Mejias, thank you for everything you all do in pursuit of righteousness. Linda Steele, do you see any federal regulations like Title 4D or U.S. Code being revised? For those who don't know, Title 4D is what uses your Social Security money that you pay in to fund child support enforcement. It was $4 billion each year are spent on child support enforcement, not custody enforcement, not therapy for families, just putting poor people in jail basically and taking their driver's license away. And it's part of the Erasing Family documentary, actually, is that child support often becomes an excuse to erase a parent to take away custody and stuff like that. The quick answer is not right away, but something we're working on. Okay, I think we got Jesse Weiner, $5.5 billion annually. Thank you for correcting me. That's even worse. And I think that whole program, only $100 million is spent on enforcing child custody orders, but that's divided up against 50 states, and $1 million a year in a state like California is nothing to enforce child custody. So I'm going to wrap this up. So just remember, stay positive. Lead from the heart, lead with a smile, keep it simple, Test your messaging. Remember, we're on the right side of history, but really make sure your message is simple. And National Parents Organization is very committed to training, giving our affiliates resources, um, having a PR firm to help assist with op-ed placement. We like to train people before they go on an interview. There's just a lot of mistakes you can fall into. And remember, if you're like, well, how does this affect me? You know, if nothing else, this is an invitation to become a better advocate. First, be a better human and work on yourself and make sure you're in a place of calm, as calm as you can be, because life is always tough before you begin to be a face of a movement. And if you can't, there's so many ways to help. From making a donation, you can make a tax-deductible donation to National Parents Organization, to being a volunteer, to doing admin work. But don't be the public face of a movement if you're going to get angry at people, because it doesn't help anyone. Let's see, last questions. So Florida has a bill in both houses right now, one step closer to shared parenting. So that's why I think Florida would be very good. Let's see what else. David Miller, are there NPO social media guidelines? We are working on that, but basically in the actual code of conduct, the major guidelines are don't badmouth other people, don't be rude. And we're going to expand on this to make it a little more clear. You know, like, if it can be used against you, don't use it. And you can be provocative, but not be rude. So I would say never say something online that you wouldn't say to someone's face. Or if you think that if you say it, they would say, I want to punch you, don't say it. Marv's wondering, will there be a follow-up film to the Erasing Family documentary? I would eventually love to make one. Again, the issue is funding. And also right now I have this wonderful job, which I think is even more important, which is bringing advocacy and change with the National Parents Organization. And also, before we do that, let's get the Erasing Family film out there. Set up a screening in your community. Set up a screening in your state legislature. Set up a screening in your university. Before we do another film, let's get this film seen by at least, 10,000 people. Like, come on. Linda Steele, Oklahoma's hyper-focused right now on our extremely high incarceration rate, so that could be a good thing to lead with. So thank you so much for joining us. Remember, our website, you can find our affiliates. You can sign up to be an affiliate. You can sign up to volunteer. You can make a donation. You can read our amazing articles on this subject. And thank you to all the work there. And there's so many other great organizations that are doing work on this issue. And I hope you find a place where you feel at home to do your advocacy. And the last thing also, one last tip, focus on your wheelhouse and what you're good at. I'm a communicator. I'm not a lobbyist. So I love doing these types of videos. I love doing media trainings. I love writing articles. I love making films. I'm not someone who's always lobbying, and there's people who are really good at that. There's people who are good at writing. Don't try to be everything. Working together, and if each person brings their unique talents, we'll have an unstoppable movement. And it's better to do a little than to not do anything at all. Tom Settle, where do we get a copy of the film Erasing Family? Erasingfamily.org, Tom. And you can sign up to host a screening. You can't get a copy. You need to host a community screening. And the reason why is I don't want you to see it by yourself and then cry your eyes out when you see what's happening to your kid, because I'm assuming you're a divorced dad. We want you to show it to 100 people. We want you to show it to state legislatures. We want you to show it in a university, because the film is designed to help kids reunite with their parents. Show it to the kids, okay? Show it to the people who work in family court. I don't want you to sit at home alone watching it. This is an organizing tool. If you're an NPO chapter, this is a recruitment tool. Because people say, how do I find volunteers? Show the film and see who's moved by it at the end. And it might be a little hard to set up a screening, but it's not impossible. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy to be a part of this. I hope that this video will lead to 10 more affiliates blooming. I hope this will lead to more laws being passed. I hope this will lead to, at least at the very least, that we embark with our activism and our advocacy with joy and love in our hearts. A revolution, this really is a revolution, must be filled with joy and love. Otherwise, you're just spreading anger and hate. And we're all about love. We're about shared parenting is maximizing and multiplying love for children. It's about ending the fighting, ending the blame game. And together we can do that. Thank you and have a good night.